In the darkest depths of an ancient forest lives a witch. Her dwelling is a hut made from the bones of her victims. The little building stands on 2 chicken legs, which can move and turn at her command. Encircling the house is a gate, whose hinges are made from the bones of human feet, and the locks are jawbones with sharp teeth. When visitors approach, the eye sockets in the skulls that line the fence glow. This witch flies through her domain in a mortar and pestle, and a broom trails behind her to sweep her tracks. But beware, those who seek out the Baba Yaga must demonstrate courage and capability, or else she will eat them for her next meal. So how does one young woman defy the odds? I'm Nicole Miras, and this is Fireside Fables. Once upon a time, in a certain tsardom, a prosperous merchant lived with his daughter, Vasilisa. Vasilisa lost her mother at a young age, but when she died, her mother gave her a special gift, an enchanted doll. With a bit of food and drink, the doll would come to life, and Vasilisa could turn to it whenever she faced obstacles in the future. But her mother warned her to never tell anyone, including her father, about the doll. Vasilisa grew into a beautiful young woman, the prettiest in town. Eventually, her father remarried, and Vasilisa's new stepmother deeply resented her beauty, particularly because Vasilisa received far more suitors than her stepsisters. But Vasilisa's cheeks only grew more pink, her eyes only grew brighter. The stepmother put Vasilisa to work, hoping that grueling labor would dull her beauty. When the tasks became too difficult or too time-consuming, Vasilisa relied on the doll. She would give the doll a bit of food and drink, and the doll would work on her chores throughout the night, the family completely unaware. One day, when the merchant had to leave on a lengthy business trip, the stepmother and stepsisters seized their opportunity. The stepdaughters snuffed out every fire in the house. They demanded that Vasilisa venture into the forest and ask Baba Yaga to borrow some fire, in the hopes that the old witch would eat her instead. With no other course of action, Vasilisa put her doll in her pocket and ventured into the pines. Okay, if you love folklore as much as I do, then you've probably heard of Baba Yaga before. And if this is brand new to you, Baba Yaga is probably the most powerful witch of Slavic folklore. The earliest written reference to this character appears in Mikhail Lomonosov's Russian grammar, published in 1755. Baba Yaga is included in a list of Slavic gods. While many of the other deities have an equivalent in the Greek or Roman pantheons, Baba Yaga stands alone. Whether or not she was actually a pre-Christian deity is unclear. Lomonosov was writing many centuries after the conversion of the Slavs, and it's more likely that the Baba Yaga could have contained maybe traces of different goddesses, but the oral tradition would have evolved over time. Now, in terms of images of Baba Yaga, she starts appearing in the late 1600s in Russian woodblock prints called lubki. And she makes appearances in fairy tales across Slavic cultures, so we can infer that by the time Lomonosov wrote his Russian grammar, she was already a well-known figure. What I find interesting is that compared to Western European fairy tales, Baba Yaga doesn't fit neatly into the archetype of an evil witch. And actually, if we're going to make comparisons to Western European folklore, she reminds me a lot of fairies. If you've been watching my show for a while, then you already know I'm obsessed with fairies, but I have a point. Not the Victorian flower fairy, but the pre-industrial force of nature, scary, capricious, might steal your babies fairies. Those fairies. Forces of nature. Sometimes Baba Yaga is cruel and vicious, and sometimes she is helpful. But in exchange for help, she demands manual labor. And if you make her promise, you have to keep it. Or you might be for dinner. Just having a little tea break. In honor of Baba Yaga, I have my Village Witch mug, but instead of the blood of children, I am having chamomile. By the way, if you love folklore, fairy tales, ghosts, witches, fairies, and you'd like to support the channel, consider subscribing to Fireside Fables. Fireside Fables is pretty new here on YouTube, so subscribing, liking, sharing, all of that goes a long way. Baba Yaga is usually described as an elderly woman with an exaggerated nose, sometimes a beak, that she uses to smell her victims. When Vasilisa entered the forest and searched for Baba Yaga's hut, Baba Yaga was able to sniff her out before she actually saw her. Terrified, Vasilisa tells her the truth, that her stepfamily sent her to borrow fire. Baba Yaga replies that she will give Vasilisa some fire, but she'll have to work to pay for it. Otherwise, the young woman will be eaten. Vasilisa is kept in the hut for 2 days and 2 nights, and she's given an impossible list of chores to do. Not even Cinderella could get this list of chores done. But unbeknownst to Baba Yaga, Vasilisa has a magic doll, and the doll is able to carry out the bulk of the tasks while Vasilisa and the witch are sleeping. Baba Yaga knows that she has given Vasilisa an impossible task. When she asks her how she was able to get it all done, Vasilisa is careful not to lie. But she also remembers her mother's warning about the doll. Instead, she says that she was aided by a blessing from her mother. This enrages Baba Yaga, who casts the young woman out of her house. But she makes good on her promise. She tosses Vasilisa one of her skulls, which holds a flame within. When Vasilisa returns home, this magic flame explodes and it incinerates her stepfamily. And then later on, she marries the Tsar, lives happily ever after, the end. Vasilisa the Beautiful is probably the most famous fairy tale that features Baba Yaga. Others include The Swan Geese, in which a little girl must save her baby brother before he's eaten by the witch, as well as The Maiden Tsar, in which Baba Yaga appears as 3 sisters. If you're familiar with the Morrigan from Celtic folklore, similar concept here. 3 sisters embody one woman. 1 is 3 and 3 is 1. Baba Yaga is a liminal figure with 1 foot in the world of the living and another in the world of the dead. She's often described as bony and deceivingly frail looking. And yet, as in Vasilisa the Beautiful, she is a cannibal who's able to eat extraordinary quantities of food. Some folklorists interpret her as a guardian of the underworld, a crossroads figure who stands between 2 realms. Aside from her own appearance, her home is constructed with the use of human bones, and her raised hut is sometimes interpreted as a funerary symbol. Okay, this is where folklore can get murky, and we have to address what is said on the internet versus what the archaeological record actually shows. 20th century Russian folklorist Vladimir Prop was an early advocate of the idea that the hut was a gateway to the realm of the dead. Fair, there are bones everywhere. But over time, this idea spun into the notion that pre-Christian Slavs built funerary huts. Little huts on raised stilts where they would house their dead and ashes from cremation. The archaeological record does show evidence of cremation as a funerary custom of the pre-Christian Slavs, but not that the Slavs were building raised funerary huts. Raised huts were and are used by indigenous Siberian communities to store food. The elevation is intended to keep out animals. Maybe this is a point of inspiration, but keep in mind we are talking about different ethnic groups who were living at great geographical distances, especially in that time. Baba Yaga's hut is described as being on chicken legs or bird legs. In some corners of the internet, you'll also hear that chicken legs was just a mistranslation, but that's not really accurate. It is true that in older Russian dialects, chicken and smoky or smoked were similar words, and smoking tree stumps would help to prevent decay. But most translators of Baba Yaga fairy tales, including the original recorders of the oral stories like Alexander Afanasiev, agree that the use of the bird imagery was intentional. In this interpretation, the hut is a creature in itself, an animistic symbol. What I think is much clearer symbolically is that Baba Yaga's hut stands as a gateway between the world of humans and the world of the forest. And her servants are often spirits tied to the cycles of nature. For example, in the story of Vasilisa the Beautiful, Vasilisa sees a rider in white clothing on a white horse materialize at daybreak, a red horse with a rider in red in the afternoon, and a black horse with a rider in black at dusk, servants of Baba Yaga who mark the cycles of day and night. Baba Yaga's hut is a domestic dwelling made uncanny by its appearance and its magic. This is a theme that runs through folklore all over the world. This contrast between the safety of the village and the dangers of the woods, in which nature rules and wild animals could attack at any moment. Like Baba Yaga, the forest is neither good nor bad, but exists outside the moral matrices of humanity. And the fact that she isn't a soft and cuddly grandmother makes sense when you consider the environment that she embodied. The Russian wilderness can be brutal and punishing, with long freezing winters and large populations of bears and wolves that make navigating the forests on your own quite dangerous. Baba Yaga exists on the threshold of the domestic and the wild. Searching for Baba Yaga means willingly stepping into the unknown, and only those who show courage and strength of character return to the realm of mortals. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure that you subscribe and let me know in the comments if you have an idea for a future episode. Be well, and I'll see you next time.